We could talk about this all day.
Yeah.
But we have had you on again for the second time, so welcome back to Gut Talk.
Woohoo.
Thanks for having me back.
We're
It's great to be here.
pumped.
Thank you for coming. We are major Kion fans.
Yes.
And if you haven't listened to the first episode, they need to go back and do that.
I'll
But
link it.
if you haven't listened to our first episode, I think it would be really helpful to just give us a quick update on how you got to Kion, right? Like, you have an incredible story, and I really urge everyone to go back and listen because your life story is a story, like, that's an episode alone. But more on the health side, how did you get to the point of starting Kion? Let's start there.
I think like just keep it somewhat short, you know, so I'm not like rehashing the whole thing again. Basically, I was raised in a family that was super into this stuff. We was really into nutrition, really into fitness, but I would say more nutrition than anything. My parents had a natural health food store, a natural health food restaurant. You know, I was born at home. I was like, it was very hippie parents here in Austin. And they also chose to be pescatarians, which meant we ate fish like once a week and otherwise we were vegetarian. And so our protein sources were just more limited. Like if you choose not to eat meat, you have a lot less options in terms of how you're going to get your protein. And so we actually talked about it a lot. Like as a little kid, we talked about combining quinoa and lentils. We talked about beans and rice together. And my parents basically described to me like what a complete protein was and why you needed to eat complete proteins because that's what made you big and strong. You know, they kept it pretty simple at that point. And, you know, as I got older, I went through all different kinds of crazy struggles, which you can catch up on the first podcast if you want to, you know, and kind of refound my health as a young adult. And then, you know, went in a lot of different directions with business. And in the end, you know, it just came back to like, what do I care most about? Like, how do I actually really want to spend my life and my work? And I love nutrition and I love protein nutrition. And so in 2017, I created this company, Kion, and it's really just been, you know, focused on that. We have other products too that are not as protein focused. Coffee, yeah.
Drink it every day.
Pretty dank coffee.
Yep.
Yeah, so that's how I ended up here. And it's been really awesome because, you know, as you commit more to something, the conversation we were actually just having, even about like dating or whatever, right? And like trying to stay true to what you're interested in and like how do you find people that are interested in that. When you build a company around like protein and amino acids and things like that, I get to hang out with the smartest scientists, like, you know, interview and have phone calls with the people who did all the research so that I can make sure whatever we're doing actually like matches up with what the research says. So it's been a really cool learning journey. It's been like getting, you know, a master's degree in this stuff.
No, truly. And even hearing that your parents talk to you about this stuff, like, is amazing because you got what so many people have literally to this day, I don't care how old you are, haven't gotten. I was just talking with one of my clients and her boyfriend or partner is a basketball player, like a really good one. And he still doesn't understand the concept of protein and how to properly fuel your body. So the fact that you were given that education at such a young age has probably set you up, I mean, obviously for you to create this company, but for massive success when it comes to how to like fuel your body. And I think everyone listening to this, we're going to talk a lot about protein, amino acids, the difference between amino acids and something like creatine, but let's just start at the basics right now. And let's start with, because of your product, and it's in both of Jill and my cups. What are these water bottles right now? And we've been taking them for well over a year now. But what are amino acids and how do they fuel our body?
So like in the simplest terms, amino acids are what make up protein. And essential amino acids, which is basically 9 of the 20, are the active component of protein. So when you eat protein, that's like really what you're trying to get is those 9 essential amino acids. And the reason for that is because your body can't make them. Like if something's called essential in nutrition, it means that you have to eat it. So there's also like essential fatty acids that you have to eat. Your body can't synthesize them. What's really cool with the body can actually make some things. So it actually can take some of the essential amino acids from protein and it can convert them into non-essential amino acids. So examples would be like leucine is an essential, glycine is a non-essential. Your body can actually make the glycine. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't get it from food or that, you know, couldn't make sense to supplement with that as well. But the essential are like the really, really important part. So why is protein even important? Like why do we even need to eat it or what does it do? Interesting you bring up, say, like a basketball player, right? Because that guy's probably thinking, you know, I obviously need to eat, and like after I play a basketball, I'm hungry, right? I have this engine I need to like fill, right? Well, I can't remember if we talked about it last time, but the easiest metaphor I like to think about is like the house metaphor. Did we talk about that last time? I don't think so.
I don't think
No,
so.
Yeah. So, you know, a good example of this is like if we think about our bodies as a house, houses have to get energy, right? You have to run the dishwasher, the lights, the washing machine, TV, whatever. And to run those, you need energy. So you might get that from like the electrical grid or from natural gas to run your furnace, or you could have a generator if the power goes out during like these crazy Texas storms that happen now. All those are ways to get energy in to like run the stuff in your house. Well, that is what carbohydrates and fat do for our bodies. Carbohydrates and fat are literally just two different fuel sources to fuel our body. And like which one's better and how much and why is like its own separate conversation. But that's really what carbohydrates and fat do. Protein is different. Protein is not primarily a fuel source. It's not like really the best example is it's like building materials. So it's actually like the material, it's like the ceramic tile, it's the wood floors, it's the framing in your house, it's all of that. Protein are these individual building blocks to help build your house. So you can get, you know, tons of protein and it's not going to like necessarily fuel your house the way that carbohydrates and fat will. So then it's like, okay, well, why do you need this? Well, the kind of crazy thing about our bodies, and to a degree way more than our house, but you can see it in your house, is your house starts to break down over time, right? Like if you walk over the same tile over and over and over and over and over and over again, like the grout could start to come out, right? Or the carpet will start to wear out. Or if you use a handle a bunch, like the paint will start to come out, you know, behind the handle, for example. Or maybe you want to remodel your house because it's dated and it doesn't look that good. Like maybe you are, you know, 20 pounds overweight, or you really want to change some specific aspect of your body, right? Similarly to our houses, the way that you do that is through protein. So what happens is our body is actually constantly breaking down its protein. So our body's made up of protein, basically over 50%, half your bones, all your vital organs, your skin, your hair, your nails, your muscles, and even things like hormones and enzymes. These are all made up of proteins. Like that's literally the building blocks. And the way that it works in our body is that they actually break down. Like every single day, constantly,
Even if you don't do anything.
if you do nothing, because they only last so long, basically, as a functional protein. And once it's no longer functioning as well as it used to, it will break down. And when it breaks apart, there are these 20 amino acids that make it up typically. And some of them are old. So similarly, like if you were, let's say you're going to redo your bathroom or something, and you're like, oh, we can keep the tile, but we really need to like change the faucet or whatever. Similarly, like some of those amino acids you can keep, and some of them, they're no good. You have to throw them away. So you actually just pee them out. So now what you're left with is this one, I'll give an example of skin protein. Like one little protein in my skin breaks down. Right now it's happening, I promise, right? And some of the amino acids are going to get peed out later, and some go into my blood and they can be used to rebuild that skin protein. So now the question is, well, I'm short amino acids. I just peed out some of them. So how do I get more? That's why we eat protein, and that's why we eat essential amino acids. When you eat protein, you break it down, you get these essential amino acids out of the protein, they go into the blood, and they stimulate that protein synthesis to rebuild that skin. And they also get used as the building blocks to actually rebuild that protein. So if you're a competitive basketball player, or you're just someone who's trying to maintain really healthy skin, hair, nails, if you're trying to improve your fitness, and ultimately if you just want to like survive, like live, I mean, there's a minimum amount of protein you would have to eat to just keep living so your like organs don't fail. So that's why protein is so important. And at the heart of that are essential amino acids. They're the thing that you're trying to get out of the protein.
So like a steak, for example, will you explain that protein structure? Because it's easy to understand, like with essential amino acids, let's say like the powder that we'll get to soon. You can, like that's a powder and it has all 9 essential amino acids. With a steak versus a chicken, what do those look like when it comes to amino acid profile?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I would just say, like, when we just talk about food overall. So when you're trying to find maybe an ideal protein source, It would be one that's very digestible, so you can get the proteins out of it. It's high in these essential amino acids, and ideally it's probably lower in total calories. That means it's like there's more protein and you're not having to eat like tons of food. So an obvious example of something that would be higher in calories would be like bacon, right? It's kind of obvious, right? There's like protein, but it's like wrapped in fat, right? But grains are another example of that. Like beans are, they have amino acids in them, they have protein, but they're actually very caloric. Like kidney beans have like
carbs too.
They have a lot of carbs, and that's basically what it is. So like if the grain is surrounded with carbohydrates and there's a little bit of protein, or you're eating a piece of meat but it's got tons of fat on it, then it's simply not, you're getting all these other calories in addition to the protein.
Right.
So let's just, compare, say, like beef and chicken. Those are both very high quality proteins, particularly like if you get a, like a leaner beef. So in a steak, well, this is maybe kind of mind-blowing for people, about only 25% of it is protein.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you think about, you're going to eat like an 8-ounce steak. I'm choosing 8 for like an easy number.
Yeah.
Only about 2 ounces is actually protein.
Wow.
The reason for that is because there is like some fat and some carbs, but there's also a lot of water in it, right? And so at the end, there's about 25%. Of that 25% of the total steak that's protein, less than half of it is essential amino acids.
Wow.
Yeah, it's about 40, every steak is different, but let's say like around 45%, maybe 43 to 46% is essential amino acids. And it's like a good set of those essential amino acids, because every single type of food source actually has a different composition. If we go back to the building analogy, like we can say the word brick, but like you could have a gray brick or red brick. You could have brick that's made out of, that has little crystals inside of it. There's all different types of bricks. Similarly, there's all different types of protein. With chicken, it's actually a quite similar profile. It's full of water, so a very small amount of it is actually protein. And then of that, about a little less than the beef actually is essential amino acids. But those are both good sources of protein. Again, though, if you compare that, say, to like beans, it's like you basically have to eat about 4 times the amount of beans in total weight as you would of like steak or chicken to get the same amount of essential amino acids.
Right.
And it's not even complete. So like in beans, there aren't as many.
Right.
So when it comes to essential amino acids, what happens to our girls out there who are trying to get skinny and they're cutting calories majorly and they're only consuming 60 grams of protein in a day when they really should be consuming, say, 100 to 130 grams of protein? When it comes to essential amino acids, what's happening to them on a day-to-day basis? Like, how is their body struggling, and if so, how?
Yeah, so the first thing to understand about weight loss is that obviously if you're cutting calories, if you consume less calories per day than you expend, you will lose weight. But what's important to say is you will lose weight, not necessarily you will lose fat. What often happens is that when you go into a caloric restriction, you're also cutting back on your protein, right? And even if you don't cut back on your protein, you burn muscle. Burn is not exactly the right term, but here's a simple way of describing it. So fat stores on our body are this tool that we developed as animals so that like when you go without food, you don't die, right? It makes sense actually. Like I can eat, I can kind of feast, and then I can store those extra calories as fat on my body. And so then when I don't get food, I can actually live off that fat. Well, muscle is kind of similar in that it is the store of amino acids for the rest of our body. So my heart is made up of a bunch of proteins and little amino acids inside of it. And right now there's literally protein turnover in my heart, right? Proteins are being broken down and new ones are being made. If I don't eat protein today, if I don't eat protein, honestly, just for a few hours, now you don't need to like worry about it, but if I don't eat protein today, I'll leave it that simple. How do I get amino acids to help rebuild that heart tissue? My muscle. We break down muscle tissue to supply the blood with amino acids so we can rebuild our hormones, our heart, our kidneys, all these other parts of our body. So when you go into caloric restriction, what happens is you start breaking down this muscle tissue in addition to the fat. So like if you do a really intense short-term caloric restriction, about 40% of the weight you lose is muscle. If you do a longer term one, it still typically is about 25%.
Which is not what we want.
Yeah, you're not trying to lose muscle, right?
Right.
And so then the question is, okay, well, is there a way to overcome that?
Yeah.
Is there a way that that doesn't have to happen? And there is. It absolutely is possible to only lose fat and to not lose muscle. And I've seen this like repeated with like in-body scans and tons of people doing this and like, published research on this. And basically what happens is when you cut calories, you need to eat even more protein, but fundamentally you need to eat even more essential amino acids. And so it does become hard, right? Like this whole idea of how condensed is the food source with essential amino acids versus calories becomes really important because it's like, God, I'm trying to cut, a few hundred calories and like, now it's like you start seeing like, oh, this is why people drink skim milk or have skim, or non-fat Greek yogurt or things like that, because you need to get so much more protein, so much more essential amino acids with that much less calories. And the science has showed in the last few years that actually a 600 calorie deficit, which would equate to, if you did that, it would equate to a little over a pound of weight loss in a week.
Okay.
If you cut 600 calories a day, you'd lose about a pound in a week. That necessitates a threefold increase. So 300%, 3 times as much essential amino acids to maintain your muscle.
Wow.
And how many scoops of Kion is that?
How many scoops? Well,
Yeah.
it depends on it depends on your body weight and how many you
Okay.
need.
Fair
But what I would say is like, if you're in a more aggressive, like, caloric restriction, it's like that is when supplementing. I mean, I think supplementing can always make sense.
Yeah.
But particularly to like people like in their 20s, if you caloric restriction is a really important time. Caloric restriction and any kind of intense training, because basically the essential amino acids help overcome that and ensure that you're only losing the fat but still maintaining the muscle.
I talked to you on the phone about this, but I want to talk quickly about my in-body scan results because our community knows that I've kind of had a bit of a transformation in the past year, a bit like a significant, if you will, in terms of like weight loss, but now also putting on muscle. But I was really out of the gym for a while until January. So I've only been in the gym for 3 months now. And I just did an in-body scan and the trainer looked at it and was like basically telling me that it was really impressive for someone who's only been in the gym to have, you might need to help me out with this, but it's like the amount of muscle I had to fat was like very significant, like was a good number, if you will. Like I was on, they like to see like a D when it comes to the averages and the ranges or whatever.
The shape of a D.
The shape of a D.
Yeah.
Basically, you had
Yeah.
lower body fat and higher muscle
Yes.
for someone who had only been training for like
Exactly.
3 months. Yeah.
And I was like so excited to have you on because I have what has stayed true is one, my nutrition. I'm very on top of it 90% of the time. I have flexibility. But two, taking essential amino acids every single day, literally. And I was just thinking in the back of my mind, I'm like, oh my God, it's got to be, it's obviously I always believe it's like a holistic approach, but amino acids, I really feel like helped me either keep on the muscle or like right when I've been in the gym for 3 months, like it's really helped me put it on. What is from your perspective? Like, what would you say has helped me if I've been taking, is it a
It's
large?
both. It's actually both.
Okay,
So
let's talk about
I
that.
think though the more mind blowing one that I think so many people just don't understand about nutrition and protein nutrition is that it actually works even when you're not training.
Yeah. Okay. Yes.
Wait, you told us about a study last time about people in
High hospital beds.
Yeah,
I'll
it's like a
literally never
NASA
forget
study,
that.
yeah.
But I could never get it right. So could you reshare?
Yeah,
the
kind
story?
of share how that
yeah.
can happen to someone like me who is really just for a year walking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So absolutely. So the basic study was sponsored by NASA, and the whole idea was they're sending astronauts into space. How can they maintain muscle mass when there's no resistance training? Because like what I would say is the first thing you should do if you want to like build and maintain muscle, and I honestly just want to have a good body composition, is you should lift weights and walk. I think walking is such an awesome, and running. I like running too. I'm not trying to hate on the running. I like running too. But it's like you need to exercise, right?
Yeah.
And really that resistance is what helps. And then oftentimes the protein is the building blocks to support the resistance training. But essential amino acids work without exercise. You do not need exercise for essential amino acids to work. And And so what they basically trying to study is, can you use essential amino acids as a tool to help these astronauts not lose muscle in space? So they sponsored, originally it was a 28-day study. They did follow-up studies and they moved it down to like 14 and 7 days because it's such a miserable study for a participant. But basically these people were in bed for 28 days, could not move, you know, like going to the bathroom in the bed, right? They're young adults too. Imagine like being like a college student or like a graduate
They
student
better
doing
be getting
this.
some good money for that. Like,
But basically, they had to maintain bed rest. They had like 3 meals a day, and then they supplemented with essential amino acids a couple times per day. And what happened at the end of those 28 days was no muscle loss. And like anyone who's been injured or, you
That's
know, had to
crazy.
like lie in bed for a few days, like you can lose muscle fast. They lost no muscle.
wow.
And I'll explain why.
Yeah.
So the reason why that happens is because the thing, and this is why I was saying essential amino acids are like the thing in the protein you're really trying to get. If you eat, and again, beef is a great source of protein. If you eat 30 grams of beef protein, it will stimulate more protein synthesis. So telling the body to actually like rebuild muscle, but also rebuild skin, all the proteins in your body, then double that amount, 70 grams of beef protein, if you eat that beef protein with a part of a full meal. So if you eat like 70 grams, like a 12-ounce, that's about how much protein's like in a 12-ounce steak. You eat that with like broccoli and potatoes and a bunch of other good, healthy stuff, you'll actually stimulate less protein synthesis than if you had eaten 30 grams of steak on its own. Now, I don't share that to tell people you should start separating all your foods, right? But I share that just to help explain this next point. What stimulates the protein synthesis is when you eat foods or supplements and you get a high concentration of the essential amino acids in your blood. Because basically what happens is you get all these essential amino acids in your blood and it sends a signal to the proteins in your body saying like, hey, there's a bunch of us here. It's safe to start breaking down and to turn over, and so we can start replacing all of the older proteins that are in the body and to rebuild and to build more and new. So when you mix the beef with a bunch of other stuff, it slows down the digestion. You don't get this big concentration of the essential amino acids in your blood all at once, so that signal doesn't get sent as strong. Now, if you just did like a crushing workout and you did send that signal and then you like fuel it with just the beef, you're doing great. So I'm not saying you need to like start separating all your meals, but that gives that kind of basic idea of how the food on its own could send a signal.
Right.
If you take a whey protein powder, it has 3 times the impact on those EAA blood levels than the beef does, gram for gram.
Wow.
So a whey protein powder is much more potent and much more powerful at stimulating protein synthesis than whole food beef.
No, you need both because you need other parts of the nutrients when we're really just talking about essential amino acids.
We're just talking about protein.
Next thing you know, people are just gonna be like dry scooping and eating steak all
well,
day.
so here's and I try to like, maybe I should have cautioned it even more in terms of like to like not encourage.
Some of this is common, you know, you got to use common sense.
But I would
This
just
is
say
not
like,
medical advice.
I like no, but like even I just straight up endorse like eat whole food meals.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, really, my experience is like if you eat a lot of like real whole food proteins and vegetables and fruits, like you're good.
You're good. But then like tack on what I've been doing, what Jill does is we like to then add in the amino acids, the protein powder, the creatine to just get that, if you will, extra boost. Because what I think some of the things you're saying, and again, gut health is at our core. And why I say that is because a lot of people aren't even really truly digesting and absorbing their food properly as well. So you're talking about only a fraction of that you're getting from, let's say, the beef. You got to make sure that you're actually digesting and absorbing all of that to even get everything from even that fraction, right? Like if you're only getting, how many did you say amino acids you're getting from a piece of steak? Like
40, well, it's about 12% of the total weight is actually like essential amino acids.
So you got to make sure that you're getting all of that from just the piece of steak. And so I guess that brings me to like protein powders and creatine.
Pause. I have 2 things to say
go
about
ahead.
essential amino acids.
Yeah.
One is our followers know that Jenna is very regimented and diligent with a slew of things. If it doesn't work for me, I'll forget about it in 2 weeks. Not only do I take the essential amino acids powder every single day, I travel with it. Because the impact that I saw on my skin and just the overall toneness of my body when I didn't change my workouts was, in my opinion, relatively drastic. And I eat well. I get my protein in. I track macros very lightly just for my own doing, because if not, I'll fly off.
Yeah.
It's bad. I go from like 0 to 100. But my point is, like, it is probably the supplement that I have seen the most improvement ever, other than like really potent gut health things when I was doing poorly. Like, I truly noticed a difference. And so I just want to say that, because we bring a lot of people on, we talk about a lot of different things, but you're back again because we've taken essential amino acids for over a year now, very, like, without fail. And Jenna and I will fight. Sometimes I had them being sent to the wrong address actually for a little while. So I was borrowing Jenna's, and like, she was not polite.
No,
about it.
I
I'll
was
just say that.
pissed. I was like,
The other thing I'll say is we're living in a world in which Ozempic and like drugs are very popular right now, for some more needed than others, whatever the reason is. Can you talk about whether essential amino acids would be even more important for those on an Ozempic or an Ozempic-like drug? Is there any correlation, any studies that show like those on that type of drug, GLP-1s, need more essential amino acids? Because they lose a lot of muscle, don't they?
Yeah, they do. So I'll bridge it from even just the conversation we were just having. So like I was saying, that protein has 3 times the impact. A whey protein has 3 times the impact as like a beef. Essential amino acids, something like Kion Aminos, has 3 times the impact as the whey protein. Because the Kion Aminos is only the essential amino acids, right? Whereas even whey protein, only about half of it is. And it's basically it requires no digestion. So when it just hits the blood and it immediately stimulates this protein synthesis. Thus your experience of maintaining more lean muscle, having better skin, hair, nails, etc. So why and how could that make sense for someone who's on, a GLP-1 agonist medication like Ozempic? What I would say is Ozempic, and this is my perspective, but I think it's pretty simple and grounded. It's fundamentally just a caloric restriction tool. It suppresses appetite, right? It delays your gastric emptying, meaning it makes it to where you don't the food doesn't exit your body as quickly, and it just literally helps suppress hunger. So it achieves the same thing as you would achieve for someone who basically is able to suppress their appetite or is able to control caloric restriction some other way. I think the big thing that has been uncovered through this, though, and through the science, is that it's not as simple as people say. Like, people are like, well, just eat less. Well, it's like we're actually all wired pretty differently. Like, we have very different hormonal and chemical balances that dictate, influence how we perceive hunger, when we perceive hunger, etc. And it's not as simple as like, just don't do it. It's actually really different for different people. So Ozempic has unlocked this potential for people to not get hungry, right? I mean, unfortunately, it also can make them really nauseous and make you not feel that good. But basically, it enables you to eat a lot less calories. That said, it works the same way as what I described earlier. If you suppress calories and you don't eat, about 40% of the weight loss is going to be muscle early on, and at least 25% long term, unless you take very specific measures to increase your daily essential amino acid intake. So whether it's through Ozempic or whether it's through, cognitive behavioral therapy or a diet coach or whatever, if you're cutting calories that significantly, the only way that you could potentially maintain that lean muscle, and I would say not even lean muscle, but people talk about like Ozempic face, where it's like the muscle in your face starts to droop and sag because hollow out,
cheeks,
if you don't want that to happen, then really focusing on significantly increasing your daily essential amino acid intake is going to be important. I think the tricky thing with this is like, it probably really is hard to do, near impossible, like only with food if you're on that kind of drug, because you just don't have.
right.
I mean, so you're just like, people are just not hungry at all.
Yeah. Two quick follow-up questions. One is we take a powder from Kion. I've seen it come in pill form. Does that matter?
No, it's the exact same.
Okay.
Yeah, basically the powder is just like if you like drinking a flavored powder.
Oh yeah.
a
Yeah, we
capsule.
do.
Mixed berry.
I bring it to
Till
the
I
gym.
die.
Awesome,
I'm
yeah.
like,
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
yeah.
It's to the point now where I don't like drinking regularly, like just regular water, because I
Me
just
neither.
want my water
I
to
hate
taste
plain
like
water.
Kion mixed berry, and like that's the truth.
Wait, I have to plug that you can go to getkion.com/gut talk too if you guys want to get your amino acids
For 20% off.
For 20% off.
Just saying.
Yeah, just saying.
The other thing is where Jenna is Jenna's she's on her booty journey. She's trying to grow a butt.
Yeah,
Mhm.
trying to build an ass.
I just want to be like in pure athlete form. I want to feel good. I want to be able to recover well. I want to run. I want to lift. Hybrid athlete is extreme, but like a low level of that, right?
Uh-huh. I
How-
love that vision.
Thank you.
I love that vision
Thank
for you.
Yeah, you know what? Like I was a catcher in college. I don't want a big butt. Like I don't want my
Yeah.
jeans.
Well,
to
you
not
already
fit.
have one, so
I just like it's way more about how I feel. Like I just want to feel efficient.
Uh-huh.
and I think
Agile,
yes,
explosive.
yes,
like,
exactly.
Yeah,
Like,
I think the
cool.
majority of our community want to get stronger, build more lean muscle mass,
Right.
maybe lose a little fat because we're all women and that's like the toxic culture that we're in right now.
Right.
How do women, what are your basic steps to achieve that?
You just hijacked my question.
Oh, I thought that's where you were going. Oh my God.
No, I said I had 2 questions on essential amino acids. And the
I thought that was
second
the second one.
Sorry, I'll hurry up. Was just that. You made me lose my track of thought. Oh yeah,
You wanna
okay,
be a
so
hybrid.
With that goal in mind.
Yeah.
I've been taking it 2 times a day. I've been taking it in the morning, and then I remember from the first episode you said taking it right before sleep is actually a really great time to take them. So I take it before bed.
Great.
Would you say 2 times is enough for me? A
I-
day,
Oh,
taking
that's-
essential amino acids twice a day. Would you say
I,
that's good?
I think at your age, I think that's great.
Okay.
What I would say is that the older that you get, the more value you could get from taking it more.
Okay.
We have our
And-
mom on it.
Like your mom.
Yeah,
I mean,
she's 60.
How dare you? No, I'm kidding.
yeah,
Three.
She's in her
you're-
60s.
what I would say is, okay, so quick summation of what happens as we get older, but then also
Yeah.
I want to talk more about how you could even optimize.
This is good for
Yeah.
how
our
you're
mom and her
taking it.
friends.
Yeah. So as we age, our ability to digest protein and our sensitivity to the amino acids in the protein to like rebuild proteins in our body decreases. Thus, as we get older, like our skin sags more, it's harder to rebuild muscle, etc. And that is called anabolic resistance. To overcome that through nutrition, it is possible, and it is essential amino acids.
Wow.
So when they've done studies, for example, on women in their 60s,
Yeah.
like earlier I was saying the essential amino acids are 3 times as powerful as whey protein. For women in their 60s, it's 6 times. 6 times the impact as a whey protein powder. So you can even just imagine how little impact even whole food protein has.
Mhm.
Now, I'm not trying to tell your mom, like,
Yeah, but
don't keep eating
It
meals.
makes sense.
But her actually probably taking, you can take up to 3 servings at once,
Oh,
and it's increased benefit.
okay.
But the best place to start for most people is like once a day.
Okay.
Like you just start once a day,
Right.
you're gonna see benefits. But you could take up to 3 servings a day. So like for your mom, I would encourage you to take 2 or 3 servings twice a day,
Wow.
and she will stay fit. I mean, as long as she like
Moves.
Yeah,
moves
she's
and
in a
eats generally clean, like
workout
she will
routine.
stay really fit
She
into
eats-
her 70s, 80s.
Our parents eat
90s.
unbelievably, like literally completely change their lives. But I think the biggest thing she's worried about, right, is the like losing the muscle mass, like you said, and not like her skin. You know, you see
Yeah.
the changes, and you're like, what do I do about it?
So women that age
Yeah.
can add like pounds of muscle by starting to supplement with
Wow.
more essential amino acids like twice a day.
Okay,
And
that's
studies have shown, like,
incredible to
pounds of
know.
muscle.
She's gonna
yeah.
be pumped.
She's gonna be
about
pumped.
that.
All of your moms, you guys
Yeah.
listening. We do have a small percentage of older women that listen to us, so that's for them too.
Because our mom plugs her podcast.
Yeah,
everywhere she
probably
goes,
it's all
so-
of my
Good,
mom and her
yeah.
friends. Let's
Yeah.
be
You
real.
were saying you were gonna. How do
Oh.
I optimize?
Yeah. So for you,
Yeah.
I think it's like, it's kind of more about what your goals are. What I would say is every time you take it, right, you are stimulating this new protein synthesis. So if you take like 1 serving or 2 servings take 1 serving, you do it like twice a day, you basically are adding these extra little boosts at the beginning and the end of your day to say like, hey, let's go rebuild the proteins again. So you're going to see kind of like general improvements in probably skin, hair, nails, muscle, etc. And it's going to support your overall recovery from exercise. Like you're supporting that turnover, like really healthy turnover every day, twice a day. If your goal was, I want to get like a lot stronger, if you started taking 2 servings twice a day, or you added 1 more serving, it would probably lead to even more of that muscle that you want to get. I think though, and assuming that you're not in caloric deficit,
No.
right? You're not in
I'm
caloric deficit.
ravenous all the time.
Okay, yeah,
like, I'm
yeah,
constantly-
yeah. So like you're sticking with your current weight.
Mhm.
If you did that, that's what would happen.
Okay.
If you were like, yeah. So I think it's kind of like if you're if you're generally happy with where you're at, then I
Mhm.
think that's a great amount, assuming like the rest of your diet's pretty clean.
Yeah.
If someone was in a different situation, they're like, I really want to put on, more, I want to put on more muscle in my glutes,
Yeah.
right? Or I want to cut 10 pounds of fat. If you were trying to do either of those, it could make sense to take a little bit more.
Okay.
Like if you're going to go into caloric deficit to lose 10 pounds of fat, I would probably take during that period. And again, it's not the kind of thing you just do forever,
Right.
but it would be the kind of thing where maybe you do take 2 to 3 servings at once and you do that like 3 times a day, because then you eat pretty clean, you could lose 10 pounds of fat and lose literally no muscle at all. Which is pretty awesome. Like that's just
Yeah.
normally not. And when you see when people see their bodies transition like that, like they
Yeah.
literally only lose the fat and they maintain their muscle, like you just immediately look more toned. Like a 5-pound weight loss looks a lot different if it's 5 pounds of only fat versus if it's 3 pounds of fat and 2 pounds of muscle.
Yes, because you look tighter and leaner and
Yeah.
like stronger, which I think a lot of us are trying to achieve these days. I think there's a lot of talk about protein these days and muscle building and how amazing it is for so many reasons, longevity. I mean, who doesn't want to be strong, For me, selfishly, but also for all the girls who are listening to this and they want to get leaner, put on a little bit of muscle, lose a little bit of fat. Along with amino acids, what are your kind of basic starter recommendations for fueling your body and really setting you up for success if you're kind of just getting started or you've been doing it for a little bit and you want to just dial in a little bit more?
Supplement wise or just in general?
In general.
In
Starter-
general,
Yeah.
nutrition first. Kinda. Yeah,
okay.
I think it's like it's so simple,
Yeah.
but it's like hard.
Yeah. No, it is.
Because I think what it really comes down to, and this has been my experience, not only with the research but just personally,
Mhm.
is that you have to like shift your belief and your understanding about what like really what is food.
Yeah.
In a way, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
And we hear it all the time, like whole food nutrition, like eating whole foods, like not eating processed foods.
Mhm.
But I really would just say it's like if you look at your plate and your plate is like vegetables and fruits and animal proteins, like lean animal proteins, that would be like chicken breast, Greek yogurt, tuna, fish, lean beef, pork, whatever.
Yeah.
Or if you really want to be more on the vegetarian side, just leaning more into like dairy. Tofu, honestly, is a pretty great source of essential amino acids. Like that's what's on your plate, and you maybe have some potatoes or something,
Sure.
but like you're not you can really eat like not as much, but almost as much of that as you want.
Yeah.
Right. As soon as you start adding in things like that are just super calorically dense,
Mhm.
things like oils and
Mhm.
even like olive oil. I mean, olive oil is good, but like 1 tablespoon is 120 calories.
Right.
And so it's fuel. It's like hyper concentrated fuel to fuel your body. So that means you need to move a lot though. It's just hyper concentrated in this
Mhm.
little tiny thing.
Mhm.
Whereas like you can eat a ton of
Mhm.
vegetables, right?
Mhm.
And all that fiber is great for you and it's not that caloric. So it's kind of like, it's just really realizing like that is it. Like that's the key. And if you want to eat like pizza and pasta, or you want to eat, a bunch of rice and beans or things like that, they're just very dense. They're super dense in calories, but they don't have nutrients like vegetables and fruits have all these micronutrients, and they don't have amino acids like a lean protein source does. So I think it's really just thinking like that's mostly what I'm going to eat.
Yeah.
Well, I tell a lot of my clients too, it's like we all want to hit like our protein goals and our carb goals and our fat goals, our macronutrients. I often end up telling them like when it comes to fats, like if you're eating animal-based protein and you're like cooking with some butter and you're maybe adding a little bit of olive oil to your salad or whatever, you're getting enough fat in.
Yeah.
Like that's what I kind of tell them is like, and not to I'm such like about having the right mindset when it comes to nutrition, like be flexible, enjoy your life, whatever. But really, like you're getting a lot of fat in. I think the thing that people miss is, like you said, the fiber and like eating, I think it's kind of, what is it called? Like volume foods that are
volume. They're high volume.
High
They
volume.
are filling.
Exactly.
Which is interesting. Like as a carb, like potato actually is quite filling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I literally just
Yeah.
ate them before we came.
Yeah.
I love
Yeah.
potatoes.
And potatoes are also crazy. This is crazy when people don't realize it is a
Yeah.
complete protein.
Yes.
It
I
has a
know
full
that.
essential amino acid
Did
spectrum.
you
I mean,
know that?
it's a very small amount
Yeah.
of it as protein, but
No, living with Jenna is the funniest thing because like yesterday I was like, wow, I really love milk. Like I'm so glad I like don't do dairy free anymore. And she's like, did you know? Like she was like, fun fact about milk. Guess. I'm like, I don't know. She's like, it's a complete food.
No,
was like,
well, it's a perfect food.
Oh,
It has
perfect
almost
food.
equal
Oh, yeah.
amount of
Yeah.
protein, carbs, and fats. See,
I was like,
come on.
I'm like, yeah, I told you, I remember things, especially when it comes to nutrition or science things. I remember half of it. Like I can comprehend in my mind what it means, but like the NASA study, the amount of times I've tried to explain that, and like I'm like, it's just for people in bed. They are more muscular. Take it, you
Well,
know.
I'm glad you heard it again.
One thing that I've been wondering is you own a supplement company, so just to like nerd out at a very easy level to understand, what are some things that what else could I be doing, or anyone listening? Like I'm taking my essential amino acids a ton. We haven't even touched creatine, but
Yeah, I wanted to.
we are. I think you guys are. I think we're doing creatine, or we're getting.
Yeah.
You guys are sending us creatine,
Yeah.
so we'll be on our creatine journey here soon. But is there anything that you think's not talked about enough? I mean, I don't think essential amino acids are.
Not at all.
But is there anything else where you're like, wow, this just like doesn't get the coverage it should?
I mean, I think like I kind of try to always constantly go back to what has, this is just for myself in life.
Mhm.
Like when I was younger, I was so much more interested in novelty. Like what's the newest cutting edge thing? And more, I'm like, what actually is like, like survive the test of time, right? That like it's still a supplement and it's like still legit and there's still been all these studies and like it's probably really worth my time and it's actually like safe to put in my body longer term. And I think the things that stand out are essential amino acids. They're things like a whey protein powder if you're seeking that additional protein. So earlier I'm saying how essential amino acids are so much more impactful than protein, but like we make a protein powder and I take it because sometimes I want to have like a protein shake.
Yeah.
It's not like one is good and one is bad. They're just different tools, right?
Sure.
I think that omega-3 fish oil is, I think less for like younger generations. I mean, for athletes, it actually really helps like for recovery if you guys are running or lifting a lot of weights. But particularly as we age, it's like very clearly indicated to reduce all-cause mortality.
Wow.
So like just overall reduce like all-cause mortality. I can't remember the exact figures right now. I think it's like 15%.
Wow.
But it's good for brain health. It's good for heart health.
Omega-3s.
Omega-3s.
Does mom take those?
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
tell you, our
They're
mom is
so
like
on top of it.
She's
It's
she's so
crazy.
impressive. It's like her life mission.
Yeah.
We should just start
Well,
following mom.
When our grandma, I might have told you this, but it's been a while. When our grandma died of Alzheimer's, my parents were like, we're doing everything in our power to not get it and let it ruin our lives. Like we watched it ruin my grandma's life. And that's when they were like, we have the power to take control of our health. And so we're going to completely change the way we live. And it's amazing to witness, your older parents. Like I don't worry about them, because they're so in
taking such good
control
care
of their health.
themselves. That's awesome.
Our dad retired and started volunteering at a golf course. One thing led to another. Now he's like the assistant superintendent of the grounds of a golf course. Like every morning from
No longer retired.
No.
he has a full-time job. He's a
He
few
has
years away.
benefits.
He's a few years away from a pension, but it's so crazy. He's like chopping down 30-foot trees.
Yeah.
He's like doing heavy lifting every day. He's walking 20 to 25,000 steps a day. And these are people who 15 years ago like were below average healthy, I would say. Like they were just
Wow. So this is like they changed.
Completely changed at age like 55.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And because our grandma was sick for a very long time and it scared the shit out of both of our parents, honestly, because they were like, you guys are going to be us taking care. This is going to be a nightmare. And
Right.
and I mean, how
They
lucky
did it for us.
Yeah, how
That's
lucky
so
are we?
sweet.
But once they started feeling how much better they could feel and how much like my dad's golf game improved, their minds cleared up, like all of the things.
Arthritis that he had weirdly in his elbow went away.
Everything. I think our dad's last piece is he's still trying to figure out sleeping. He
Sleep.
sleeps like 5 hours a night.
Yeah. Any
which
suggestions?
I
Amino
use-
acids?
I use your guys' sleeping supplement,
Yeah.
which I love. But truthfully, I think his stuff's a little bit deeper. Like I think he needs to figure
I'm
that out.
realizing we're like your biggest spokespeople. Like,
I love it. Yeah.
that's why you're here, obviously.
You know what?
But you guys aren't on our fish oil.
No.
We're not yet.
Yes.
Yet.
Is there any, like, I mean, do your own research, but is there any major risks to women in their 20s and 30s taking fish oil?
No.
Okay.
No, it's a very
Okay.
safe supplement. I mean, the only thing I would say is that it is one of those things that it has gotten some press just in terms of like the quality can vary greatly.
Yeah.
The quality of fish oil can vary greatly, so it is worth getting like a more premium type brand.
order
Like
on Amazon.
don't just go to Amazon and get
Sure.
whatever. Don't just go to like the
Yeah.
One question that I think needs to get answered, because our community have asked me so many times and we've kind of touched on it, but to like talk about it like in, I don't know, to just discuss it, is the difference between amino acids, creatine, and something like protein powder, to break it down for them, because there's just so much noise. It would be nice to just hear like what are the differences, to have allow people to make a decision for themselves about how they want to utilize it, or if they want to utilize it.
Yeah. So all three of them, I would just say, like, I'll try to make it really simple.
Yeah.
All three of them, good.
Yeah.
All three of them, very well researched.
Okay.
Not the kind of thing where it's like, yeah, just some supplement companies trying to sell you something. All
Right.
three, like, they're well researched.
Mm-hmm.
Protein powders,
Mm-hmm.
I would just say generally, I would encourage people to focus on like a whey protein or a whey protein isolate
Versus plant-based.
versus plant-based. Although honestly, like if you can tolerate like a soy, if you really
Okay.
want to be plant-based, if you can tolerate a soy, like it's probably higher quality than the other types of options.
Okay.
They've just come out with all these new types that like
I
hemp
know.
and pea, but a lot of them are honestly, they just have the risk of being really high in heavy metals, like
Mm-hmm.
plants do just in general. And if you concentrate them,
Yeah.
and they just don't have very good essential amino acid profiles.
Yeah.
So a whey protein isolate, which removes virtually all the lactose if you have any kind of sensitivity to dairy, that's what I would encourage someone to go for. And
Okay.
basically what that gives you is what most of this conversation has been about, protein synthesis,
Mhm.
right? And it's a great replacement, for snacking.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have time to eat a big meal, or you're just trying to get in a little bit more protein. Essential amino acids, they are simply super protein powder. That's maybe the easiest way of describing it. They're like 3 times, if you're 30, they're 3 times as effective as the protein powder. And that's what it is.
Got it.
It's super
Okay.
concentrated, super
Mhm.
performance protein powder in a way.
Mhm.
That has kind of these extra benefits because the aminos stimulate so much more protein synthesis. And that's why like just adding it once or twice a day, you can see such a benefit where maybe someone wouldn't see that with just adding a whey protein. Creatine is fundamentally different. Creatine is awesome, but it's not like protein or EAAs. So creatine, kind of bizarrely, while it's like a metabolite, it's a derivative of amino acids. It actually is. It's actually an energy source.
Wow.
Yeah. So
I saw someone talk about, I think it was Joe Rogan talked about a study where Navy SEALs on like overnight missions like dry scoop creatine because it helps them get energy and it helps their brain focus. I don't know if you've seen that study. I maybe
Yeah.
described that wrong.
yeah.
Side
No,
note.
and people were in these beds.
Right.
And NASA.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not sure exactly which study he's talking about, but I can get to like how that works and
Okay.
why. So
Try.
the longest studies are not on mental performance or cognition or energy in that way.
Okay.
So like the bulk of the research basically is around how what creatine is. Creatine exists in foods too. Like you can get it from basically fish and red meat. That's where it's most concentrated, and your body can make some.
Okay.
But basically, what creatine is you know about aerobic and anaerobic training from your running, yeah.
Yep.
So aerobic, like with oxygen, anaerobic without. There are different ways that our body converts energy in our body into ATP, which is just the fancy abbreviation of the internal fuel source for our body that like beats our heart, moves our body. So there's a third type of energy, and it's called the phosphocreatine energy system. And what that is actually when you consume creatine through food or through a supplement, it goes into your muscles and it gets stored there. And when you go to perform high intensity exercise, so this could include sprinting, but you might think more like pull-ups, push-ups, lifting weights. and you're trying to get energy really fast to the muscle, those aerobic and anaerobic energy systems aren't as fast. So the phosphocreatine energy system is what gets used, and it just allows you to just like basically move really fast. And when you consume a lot of creatine, so if you start supplementing with creatine every day, you get more of those phosphocreatine energy stores in your muscle, and so suddenly you can do 6 pull-ups instead of 4. You can bench press a couple more reps. You can actually do more because you have more energy stored at the location of the muscle. And then what happens is, if you keep doing that, you keep taking the creatine, you keep exercising, you get stronger, you get more muscular endurance, etc. So creatine really, whereas we were saying earlier, like essential amino acids, you don't even have to exercise.
Yeah.
You like have to exercise to get the benefit of creatine, because what it does is it gives you energy in the exercise.
Interesting.
It enables you to exercise more.
Is that taking the creatine around like close to exercise too?
It
doesn't matter.
All that matters is you have to take it every day.
Wow.
It doesn't matter. Like, I mean, there's like very nuanced differences. If you take it after with food, it's like,
Sure.
you just need to take it every single day.
And it's not going to make you bulky.
It's not going to make you bulky.
That's like running around though. I think
Yeah.
women are scared.
Yeah.
Like of this
because like
bulkiness.
your teenage boyfriend was on it, and he
Yeah.
got jacked, and he was talking about. You're like, I definitely don't want to be like
Scared the
Josh
shit out of
again.
us.
Like,
Yeah.
no.
Exactly.
God.
No, that's good. That was actually my high school boyfriend. So that's
Yeah.
Was it Josh? Oh gosh, sorry.
the
Trigger.
And was he on
No.
creatine?
Right. Sorry.
Was he on creatine?
Probably. I'm
yeah.
sure he was.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
I think I love these conversations because you're giving us so many tools to fuel our body. And I think, like Jenna was saying earlier, TikTok, Instagram, social media in general right now is a really scary place to be as a woman, because you start changing your perception of what it looks like to be healthy based off of somewhat unhealthy women, if that makes sense. Like, you see these body images that are either on Ozempic or they're in a huge caloric deficit or things like that. And what I like about today is you're empowering us to still get results that we're looking for, but in a way that actually makes us healthier, right? Like, if you were to start taking essential amino acids and protein and creatine, like, you're going to see positive changes in your body, but your body's actually like being rewarded instead of like deprived of nutrients.
Yeah, not only your body, but our hair too. Like, we always have had a lot of hair, but if you look at my hair 4 years ago to now, there's a difference.
Yeah.
And that has a lot to do, I think, with amino acids, with how I fuel my body, my digestion, thyroid health, metabolic health. I'm kind of naming everything. But like our hair, skin, nails too, like that's something we didn't talk about a lot. You kind of touched on it briefly, but how much that these types of things, amino acids especially, improve the health of and the strength of those things, right?
Yeah, I feel like what both of you are talking about is actually being focused on nutrient density.
Yeah.
Like eating these, like taking in these things that are really dense and all this good stuff.
Yeah.
And focusing
Summing
on
it all up.
those.
I like that.
Right? Maybe versus like this over focus on deprivation. Right?
Right.
It's kind of like,
Yes.
which I feel like is like, that's the kind of the weird toxic culture around.
Yeah.
Which is
That you're just going
crazy.
to deprive yourself into health. You're not going to like deprive yourself into health.
Exactly.
I love that. You
Yeah.
can't deprive yourself into health. We have our own essentially like landing page with you guys.
Yeah.
So it's kion.com/gut talk. Is that right?
Get
Back-
Kion.
Getkion.com. Yeah.
Sorry, getkion.com/.
That's why I do
gut
all the
talk.
behind the
Right,
scenes
yeah,
stuff.
I'm just here
You
to
made
chat.
that up.
Right. But is there anything upcoming for Kion? Like, are you guys working on? It's interesting you said like now doing the things that have like stood the test of time. But are you looking into new things? Like, are there some things in production? You don't need to like share, but is there things to look forward to, or you just really looking on growing the like essential amino acids and the current supplements that you guys have?
I love this question because I feel like my answer is like counter to like most CEOs.
Yeah.
We're really just trying to like keep doing what we're doing right now, like
Yeah.
better.
Yeah.
Like I feel like there's always this
That's cool.
kind almost similar to like to the thread we were just on about like body image and all that kind of stuff, where it's like never enough and did it like this
Yeah.
and then I'm gonna try this and then try that. Like versus like what actually is like good, sustainable, healthy eating habits? Well, what's like good, sustainable like business practices? Like what
Yeah.
actually, works over the long term. And so it's make really good products, like
Yeah.
invest in really good ingredients.
Science.
It's like use science to do it.
Yeah.
Hire really good people, compensate people well, take care of people, have an awesome work culture. don't try to chase every little shiny penny or every,
Yeah.
idea that comes up. And so I feel like at this point, there's so much more we can do just to go out there and do more education
Yeah.
around things like right. We had this whole conversation about protein, amino acids. There's all this education potentially about omega-3s that can be done and had, tons about creatine, all these really awesome educational opportunities that can be taken advantage of. And we don't need to try to invent or come up with some new novel product or something. It's it's like we have an awesome suite of products, and
Yeah, you do.
it's enough work just to keep
I was gonna
making
say,
them really.
yeah.
It's a lot of just to do it
I'm
really
sure.
well.
Yeah.
So
Well, you're kind of like amino acids in coffee, I feel like are on way different spectrums in terms of where you're sourcing each, and I don't know, I feel like you have a wide range of products that you already offer, even though you're sticking with your core. If you ever need a product idea, Jill and I have one though, because I always worry that someone's gonna steal my idea, and I'm not doing it, so I can share. But Jill and I are we always feel like we need to-go protein shake. We feel like that's missing, and I know it's easy to put milk and protein powder and shake it up and bring it with you, but the amount of times people ask us if we know a really good high quality to-go protein shake, we don't ever have an answer. I know you're not going to create this, but if you ever did,
I love that. I was trying to leave the podcast with this really cool message of
Yeah.
no, we're not trying to sell you a bunch of stuff. And Jenna's actually, no,
if
this
you
is what
actually
you
do
need
have
to do.
one, that's
Right.
what's missing.
Right. Don't lose the message of how cool it is and I really
it
love
is.
that. In a world in which Jenna and I try to limit the amount of times we're calling out BS marketing scams from other supplement companies, I really do love that you guys are listen, what we're doing right now, we're trying to do really well, and we're just going to do that. I
Yeah.
think that is a message I wish I heard more
And the
of.
backing it with science and actual real data, I think is really amazing too, because as someone who's in this field, and then you see all the other shitty brands that are, I'm sure you see this too, that are just putting things out, and they're their marketing is, we talked about this last
We're
episode.
going down a tangent.
I'm just saying it's nice and it's refreshing to really be able to talk with you about the science, and you really actually know what you're talking about, which is not the easiest thing to find, is very refreshing. So we're very grateful that you came.
well, I'm
Get
just
Kion.com/gut talk.
Yes. For
I got it.
20% off.
Yeah, no, thank you again for
Yeah.
coming
Thanks
on.
for
We
having
love-
me.
we love
Truly.
Yeah,
chatting with you.
anytime. I
Thank
love it.
you.